Yum, yum, yum. So good. Fabulous. Fantabulous. Okay, let's get started. Wait for the notification to come through on my phone that tells me that Spirit and Coffee is live so that I can say hello to everybody. Give me just a moment. Not sure if it's doing that. Oh, okay. Not sure if the audio is coming through a little slow. So, I know that I have a friend who's like, "Hey, I need to give you some advice about your live streams," and I'm like, "Thank you. I probably need that." I would say that it's probably I want to say the bit rate, perhaps, um, at which it's streaming. Perhaps I need to turn it down. Okay, so I apologize if it's not as good as it was in the past. See if I can. Okay, well, we'll just continue to go. So I apologize if the stream rate is a little off. But I did a show this morning. Was super excited with one of my followers, Lingalonga. He showed up, and it was quite amazing actually because he is in the medical profession, and he's an EMS, and he talked about how the medical field doesn't necessarily, you know, take into account the intuition of, you know, basically. Hold on one second. Oh no, it's not gonna let me. I don't know if it's okay. Anyway, he talked about it, and it's kind of hard because I guess in the medical field, right? It's more about being rational. You have to be able to be rational. You have to be able to have your mindset in a space that you can respond to trauma. And sometimes the emotional states, they're put on the back burner, especially in situations that are harsh or circumstances that are not easy. So I appreciated his insight and also the intuition that he stated that he carries, and the intuition being that he feels like people in the medical field, they typically they typically don't talk about the connection to the human condition, or looking at how there is this sort of inherent feeling when things are actually starting to unfold. Like, for instance, he says he can feel when he's going to get a call, and he knows that it's going to be like a car accident or whatever it is. But we have that intuition. It's kind of like, when you're thinking about a person and then they call and you're like, I was just thinking about him. We do have that, and sometimes we tap into it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're so busy doing other things that we don't necessarily tap into that intuition. But I was appreciative of his insights on that. So if you guys have a chance to go listen to it, it was on my Podbean podcast. It wasn't necessarily on the live stream, but on my actual just audio Podbean live broadcast, and I think it was super helpful. So good morning, whoever just got on here. I believe my friend Fred's going to give me some advice on how to get better at this whole streaming thing, but the streaming seems to be going slower. I don't know what's going on with it. But I want to talk about the alchemy of emotion. If I don't say good morning to you, please say good morning. It's because I don't see that you're here. But the alchemy of dark emotion, and these are the things that we don't talk about. Dark emotions, the uncomfortable emotions, the things that people are typically too afraid to talk about because we've been made wrong for them or whatnot. And so I think it's important that we continue to talk about them. So, emotional flow, riding the surfboard of awareness on the wave of emotion. Emotional alchemy is a conscious flow of emotional information and energy. As we shall see in the following 3 chapters, each dark emotion has its own particular quality of energy and its own kind of flow. Emotional flow is not about letting it all hang out and acting in whatever way we are impelled, but about tolerating the energy of grief. So the tolerance level, it's understanding tolerance, right? What tolerance level do we have for these particular emotions? Sometimes our tolerance level is very small and sometimes it's big. And one thing that I did, and I talked about this the other day, is asking my professor if someone is in a toxic environment, perhaps the threshold of that toxicity for them is higher. And so they're used to longer periods of being in toxic emotions. Now, kind of like the pain threshold, some people can be in pain longer than other people, or they're in pain and they don't even know they're in pain until they're not in pain. And so their threshold has sort of built up this resilience to it, keeping them in a state of pain, but not necessarily in a good way. So thinking about the experiences you have, understanding the experiences you have, asking yourself, am I exposed to toxic environments more often than not? How long do I stay in these toxic environments? Good morning, Sandra. Are these toxic environments? Good morning, Ram. I'm sorry if I said that. I totally butchered that. But asking yourself, am I stewing in a toxic, good morning, bestie, in a toxic environment? And if you're stewing in a toxic environment, right, you're just sort of hanging out there, you're stewing in it, you may not even know. So you may actually build up the thresholds. You may have, good morning, Jennifer, have come to that period where you're just like, I'm in this toxic environment and we know it. And it's because your threshold's so high. And then kind of coming out of that and then seeing what it's like to be on the other side sort of gives you the indication that perhaps you were there and didn't even know it. So sort of, I'm gonna. So I asked my professor if there was information about this, because I feel like our tolerance level for anxiety, for anger, for frustration is higher, and I think that it's that way because I think we have not been able to communicate those things. So depression and sadness and everything shows up because we haven't been able to necessarily talk about these emotions in the past. They were all deemed wrong, or you got to get rid of them, or we don't talk about those things. And so I think that we've allowed ourselves to just sort of hang out in this toxic space and not even realize it. And so our threshold has probably grown so much so that we don't even know what it's like to be in environments that are peaceful and in harmony. And perhaps we get uncomfortable when we're in peace and harmony because we've never truly experienced what that's like. Or we think it's not normal, that we have to be in these high stress level, high stress environments. And I did kind of see that, with an individual recently. Like, that's normal to them. It's not normal to me. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that there is this place where harmony and peace can be normalized, stabilized, where some people normalize the upset or the anxiety or the depression, and they normalize it in their body, in their states of being. Where it's like, think about chronic pain. Some people live in chronic pain. I didn't know this, and I just want to kind of give my story before I read on further. Is that I have iron issues, and I've talked about this in the past. My iron issues have sort of led me to this chronic pain. Okay, the chronic pain that I experience at times, I feel lethargic. My legs feel fatigued. I have pressure in my head. I mean, so there's all this. My joints hurt a little bit, and so when my iron is super low, and I'm not feeling really well. What ends up happening, right, is I have chronic pain. Well, I was in a state of chronic illness for a long time, didn't even know it. And I didn't find out until I went and got a iron infusion. And when I got my iron infusion, They pumped me with 6 hours. Okay, that's how bad my iron was. 6 hours. Um, and after, I felt what it was like to feel good, to feel amazing, to feel phenomenal. And I was like, what is this? Well, that's how I'm supposed to feel. But I had increased my threshold for the chronic pain so high that I thought that that was the normal way to feel. It was, the doctors were in shock. How could you be standing? How could you even get up to work out? How could you? So it's because the tolerance levels were getting higher and higher and higher and higher. Now, I tell you this story because I would love for you guys to look at your own life. Look at your life and ask yourself, am I prone to toxic environments? Am I living and stewing in a toxic environment? And if so, is it possible to transition into an environment of peace and harmony and tranquility? Good morning, Angela. And if I can stay in that peace and harmony, how do I allow myself to move through those dark emotions or the emotional states that were uncomfortable and not make myself wrong for it, not make myself wrong for feeling the harmony? Some people feel guilt around that, like, why should I be experiencing all this happiness and joy while everybody else is in misery? That's a little selfish. That's this, that's that. And people they'll continue to degrade themselves for feeling wonderful, magnificent because other people are suffering. But we're responsible for our own peace of mind. We're responsible for our own happiness. No one can give that to us. That's something that we have to create inherently for ourselves. It takes a lot of deep, 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 deep digging. So how do we do that? What is it that we do to create those spaces and then allow ourselves to accept it? It was interesting because, and I talk about this because I typically, and Angela, if you're still on here, and even Patrick know, that I create a space of positivity mostly. I rarely hang out in the dark emotions. Now, that's not to say that I don't, because I do have the dark emotions. Everybody does. I just know that it's not the state of being that I can create a space that's harmony and peaceful and tranquil and not feel guilty for having that experience. But I can share it. I can share that experience with everybody else. And people say, well, how are you so optimistic? And I don't get it. How have you become so optimistic, and how do you continue to find joy, especially through all the crazy and all the, and it's because I'm used to being in states of positivism. So it is normal to be there. It's also normal to experience the uncomfortable feelings, but do we always have to be there? No. We can stay in states of happiness and peace and tranquility for longer periods of time when we allow ourselves to accept those periods of peace and tranquility. Now, I'll tell you this. It's interesting because my life is more peaceful than not. And I had a little gift show up. I'll call it a gift, and it was a gift. Show up into my space. And the gift of relationship. And the gift of relationship caused some disharmony, dysfunction, on my experience, caused some anxiety. It caused all these unpleasant feelings to arise. I'm not saying all of them were unpleasant. Of course, that's not the case. But there was a deep, uncomfortable feeling that showed up. And eventually, when that energy exited and said, and left, I was sort of like, went back to my peace and tranquility. But it felt really empty, which is kind of weird and cool at the same time. The emptiness felt like there was a lot of space and time, more than before. I had already had a lot of space and time, but even more. It was really kind of weird. It was a gift of like, here you go. let me give you this whirlwind of crazy, and then let me take it away. Now I have no drama. And without the drama, life seems very open and fluid. Now, there's some kind of feeling of like, where's the drama? It's like we crave it, believe it or not. And somehow inside me, I was craving this sensation. Why? Well, probably because I was like, I need some kind of, I don't know, action in my life. There's nothing. If there's nobody bringing drama to me, I have no drama. I typically will spend the entire day alone by myself without ever even talking to anybody. Like literally talk to you guys here, and then I go silent. And maybe that's why I have so much to say when I get on here. Like Natalie has 30 minutes of talking to do. And then when she's complete, and it was really, 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 interesting for me to experience this silence after all of the chaos. Just an interesting space. Now, I'm just saying that because I think that we somehow become addicted to that sensation, and when it goes away, we don't know what to do with ourselves. And I'm just saying from personal experience. And if we don't know what to do with ourselves, maybe we get bored, and maybe we need some drama. Maybe, it's funny, I always laugh. I'm like, well, I don't have it in my life, so I'll just watch it on TV and watch everybody's drama on TV, because I don't have any. I did for about a good month and a half, and then it sort of went away. Now, I do have, I'll say, there's a big drama, and it's dramatic stories that show up in family and whatnot. Like, that happens, right? We have our stories, but for me, I'm very good at like minimizing the amount that I allow to seep in from certain spaces. So, in relationship, when that happens, it's just crazy. Good morning, Doreen. I'll send you some of mine. What is quiet time? Yeah, I think we could swap for a day. It'd be pretty interesting, right? If you live my life, I have a lot of quiet time, and so perhaps that's why I called forth a relationship. And that's perhaps why I wanted to experience the anxiety and the crazy. Um, and now I'm in a state of, harmony where things are starting to just be quiet. And it was really weird because as soon as that energy exited, there was a lot of space and silence. I was like, whoa, what happened? Imagine that you have all the TVs blasting, right, all at once, and then all of a sudden the noise disappears. And you're like, where is it? Wait, what just happened? And it's kind of crazy. There's a lot of space and a lot of time. Interesting. So moving through those emotional states, super important, super helpful for us, right? It allows us to get a little bit closer to our authentic truth. It allows us to be vulnerable and open to the true expression of feelings that we have internally, how to articulate those emotional states and feelings and the experiences that we have. And really, that's what it's about. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about how you feel. It's about what you're trying to create. It's about your story. It's about your experiences. What do you want to experience in your life? Not about me. I know what I'm experiencing. And I'm communicating what I am experiencing, but what about you? And digging deeper. Are you staying in states of toxicity longer than perhaps you should? Do you know what it's like to experience the peace, quiet, and the harmony and tranquility? Are you comfortable when you're experiencing the peace, the harmony, and tranquility? Or is it uncomfortable because you're used to being in states of anxiety? Right? It's a sympathetic, parasympathetic state. How do we manage or move through those states? We do know that it is addicting to be in some, release those endorphins or the chemicals in our brain. It can be very addicting in states of duress, distress, anxiety, fear, depression, and we don't even know why we're addicted when we're trying to get out because be an addiction and the tranquility, and we can chill out. So chill the out, okay? I'm speaking for myself. Your sound is breaking up. I know, Doreen. I don't know what's going on. Perhaps I need to reset my router. Something. I'm trying to figure this whole stream thing out, but maybe I talked to an expert about it because I'm streaming where I used to just go live, and so I don't know. I'm gonna reset the router today. I'm gonna be able to do some tests or something. I need to get better at it, but thank you for letting me know. I appreciate it. Um, I don't know why. So I'll figure that out. Thank you. Um, so again, the emotional states. Let me see if I have anything else to say. So the flow of emotional alchemy is not passive, powerless process like laying down emotional waves of drowning, nor is it hyperactive and controlling the process like erecting a dam to prevent the water from coming through. Emotional flow is a state in which one is connected to the energy of emotion yet able to witness it mindfully. We ride the wave of emotion on a surfboard of awareness. I like that. I've talked about surfing in the past and how we ride the waves of emotion and how we sail the wave longer on a peaceful wave rather than a crazy, chaotic wave, and not come crashing down like a ton of bricks on the sand. But allowing ourselves to just flow with it is pretty much what it's saying. Allow yourself to be in flow with it, not to deny it, and not to. So be like water, be fluid, and allow it to move through you. Again, that's easier said than done, right? It's not. It's not really easy sometimes to just allow ourselves to be free flowing. And that's vulnerability. That's letting go, and all that other great stuff that I always talk about. I hope the sound is better. So there you have it. I want to continue going over. It's called Healing Through Dark Emotions, the Wisdom of Grief, Fear, and Despair from Miriam Greenspan. Apparently, her husband does emotional alchemy. Emotional alchemy is I'm a spiritual alchemist, so I love the word alchemy. But really, what it is accepting everything that we have and using it for our higher purpose, whatever that looks like for you. So hopefully that'll support you, and we'll continue on this journey. Also, as I stated before, program is talking about paradigms of consciousness, which I love. Just talking about the way that the world is shaping, consciousness is shaping into a whole new way of viewing the world, and that we ourselves are starting to awaken to this. And consciousness is starting to awaken to new ways of perceiving the world around us, which is really kind of cool, like actually super cool. Love the subject of that. Sort of my jam. Emotional states are too, but mostly the consciousness and how it's shifting is what I really love. I'm really passionate about that. World views and how do we create and recreate the world around us and be in a creative space. So there you have it. So I love you guys. Have a great day. I'm going to work out this glitches, hopefully, in my streaming. Hopefully, figure it out. Maybe with my friend who's going to talk to me today. And so I love you guys. Have a magical, fantastical, funky, freaky, phenomenal, fun, fabulous Friday.